South Carolina's Strom Thurmond was one of the most prominent segregationists of the 20th century. He was elected to the South Carolina Senate in 1933. Strom Thurmond was elected governor in 1946, having run as a segregationist Democrat back when segregationist Democrats controlled most of Southern politics. He ran for president in 1948 on the so-called states' rights Democratic ticket with a platform of segregation now, segregation forever.
Ladies and gentlemen, that there's not enough troops in the Army to force the Southern people to break down segregation and admit the race into our theaters, into our swimming pools, into our homes, and into our churches.
Strom Thurmond was elected to the United States Senate as a Democrat in 1954. He changed parties after the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and remained comfortable in the Republican Party for the rest of his remarkably long life. He left the Senate in 2003 at the age of 100. In his final years in the Senate, his only moment of relevance came at his 100th birthday party, where the Republican Senate leader Trent Lott got a bit carried away in his praise of Strom Thurmond, and he said this.
I want to say this about my state. When Strom Thurmond ran for president, we voted for him. We're proud of it. And if the rest of the country had followed our lead, we wouldn't have had all these problems over all these years either.
Days later, Trent Lott was forced to resign his Senate leadership position for having retroactively endorsed the segregationist party candidate for President Strom Thurmond. Strom Thurmond had 4 children and 1 secret child with an African-American maid who worked in his home. That secret child's father was revealed only after Strom Thurmond died. Today, on the floor of the Senate in South Carolina, another Senator Thurmond rose to speak to the controversy of the hour there. Senator Paul Thurmond is Strom Thurmond's youngest son and the only Thurmond family member in South Carolina politics.
Mr. President, fellow colleagues, I would ask that you lend me your ears, your mind, and your heart for a few minutes. Grieve the loss of my friend and colleague, the senator from Jasper, Senator Clementa Pinckney, along with his 8 sisters and brothers. Needed time to mourn the loss of my friend and my fellow Charlestonians. Vigil that Senator Kempson and I attended was powerful and beautiful. I feel that I am at a place after thought and prayer to try to find the words to maybe make a difference with you and with others.
For the next few minutes, the South Carolina Senate chamber took on the dimensions of Shakespearean drama, with the son stepping into the light to do battle with the father who first spoke as an elected official in that very same chamber 82 years ago, the father whose statue stands on the grounds of that building, the father whose name was not mentioned by Senator Thurmond today.
I think the time is right and the ground is fertile for us to make progress as a state and to come together and remove the Confederate battle flag from the prominent statue outside the State House and put it in the museum. It is time to acknowledge our past, atone for our sins, and work towards a better future. That future must be built on symbols of peace, love, and unity. That future cannot be built on symbols of war, hate, and divisiveness.
Senator Thurmond did not do the mandatory political bow to the Confederate flag that other conservative politicians always do. He did not echo Governor Nikki Haley yesterday, saying that the Confederate flag was a symbol of respect, integrity, and duty. Instead, Senator Thurmond used all the credibility that the Thurmond name has with Southern conservatives and all the credibility of his ancestors who served in the Confederate Army to discredit everything that flag stands for.
Some say that the Confederate battle flag represents the South's heritage and ancestry. Let's talk about the heritage aspect. My family has been in South Carolina for many generations. I was told that my great-grandfather was with General Lee when he surrendered at Appomattox. I am aware of my heritage, but my appreciation for the things that my forebears accomplished to make my life better doesn't mean that I must believe that they always made the right decisions. And for the life of me, I will never understand how anyone could fight a civil war based in part on the desire to continue the practice of slavery. Think about it for just a second. Our ancestors were literally fighting to continue to keep human beings as slaves and continue the unimaginable acts that occur when someone is held against their will. I am not proud of this heritage. These practices were inhumane and were wrong, wrong, wrong.
When sons follow their fathers into an occupation, sometimes they find themselves wondering why they're there. Is there any larger purpose to this other than following in a parent's footsteps? Today, Senator Paul Thurmond of Charleston, South Carolina, found that purpose.
I have often wondered what is my purpose here in the Senate. I've asked God to guide me and to strengthen me, and I've prayed that I will be able to make a difference for this state. I have prayed that I will leave this place better for the future generations. I am proud to take a stand and no longer be silent. I am proud to be on the right side of history regarding the removal of this symbol of racism and bigotry from the State House.
Joining us now, Pulitzer Prize winner Isabel Wilkerson, the author of The Warmth of Other Suns, the epic story of America's Great Migration. Also joining us, Dorian Warren, MSNBC contributor and host of Nerding Out on Shift by MSNBC, and Alan Jenkins, the executive director of the Opportunity Agenda and former associate counsel to the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund. Isabel Wilkerson, well, we lived long enough to see hell freeze over and Strom Thurmond's son repudiate his life's work.
Well, you know, I think this is a karmic moment for our country. When you think about it, the last 4 years we've really spent looking at memorializing or commemorating the Civil War, the sesquicentennial of the Civil War, which, of course, South Carolina was the first state to secede. South Carolina was where the first shots were fired. And then in this past week, we've seen that there is this massacre on the eve of Juneteenth, which is a sacred day that represents the freeing of the last enslaved people in Texas in the United States. And that occurred 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. So this is history coming full circle, and it's an important turnabout in our country.
I want to contrast what Senator Thurmond said today with what Nikki Haley said yesterday. Let's listen to Governor Haley.
For many people in our state, the flag stands for traditions that are noble. Traditions of history, of heritage, and of ancestry. The hate-filled murderer who massacred our brothers and sisters in Charleston has a sick and twisted view of the flag. In no way does he reflect the people in our state who respect and in many ways revere it. Those South Carolinians view the flag as a symbol of respect, integrity, and duty. They also see it as a memorial, a way to honor ancestors who came to the service of their state during time of conflict.
Dorian Warren, Senator Thurmond today just ripped apart that respect, integrity, and duty argument.
Ripped it apart and showed the kind of leadership from, frankly, not only a white politician, but as you so well, skillfully pointed out, the son of one of the most famous Southern segregationists of the 20th century, if not the most famous, and as you said, the longest-serving senator in terms of 100 years old. He showed leadership with that speech and was very honest about saying, what is my purpose? And I think he found his purpose in that moment on the floor to repudiate once and for all, as I would hope that all Republican politicians were to do and white Republican politicians were to do today. But to say this flag is not about heritage, it is not about pride or anything else, it is about a stain on our national soil in terms of treason, of slavery. It represents the opposite of freedom. It represents slavery and treason and succession. And so to be able to say that after all these other Republican candidates for president, Republican politicians in the state of South Carolina had an opportunity to give that exact same speech. It took Senator Paul Thurmond to say that speech. It's really remarkable. I'm struck by all of those words.
And Alan Jenkins, the thing I kept waiting for and never happened was, where's the moment where the white conservative Southern politician does the respectful bow toward this flag and uses those words that the speechwriters put in Nikki Haley's statement about the flag, saying that for some people it is about duty, respect, honor, these things. He would have none of that.
It's remarkable. I mean, let me first just take a moment and acknowledge the souls who were lost and their families at the church in Mother Emanuel in Charleston. And these are folks, and this relates here, these are folks who embodied the highest values of our country, of welcoming, of inclusion, and now we see with their families forgiveness. When it comes to the flag, the Confederate flag, people of goodwill have not been paying attention, and the flag can only be defended when people of goodwill are not paying attention, and now they're paying attention. What's remarkable is that Senator Thurmond, young Senator Thurmond, is bringing that full set of values into the way he's talking about this in a way that unfortunately we didn't see with the governor. I welcome her statement that the flag should come down, but it is remarkable to talk about the sins of the past, to talk about the fact that the flag has always been about hate and the inferiority of black folks. It's really a remarkable development.
And Isabel Wilkerson, that very important note in Senator Thurmond's speech where he says, you know, I can honor and I can love my ancestors, but it doesn't mean that I must believe they always made the right decisions.
And that's a powerful acceptance of the full weight of history and the full weight of what his family has experienced and what they stood for. It's also important to recognize that when we speak about issues of race and of all of the terrors that have occurred in our country's history, but particularly in the South, we often forget that these are people who are not necessarily evil in and of themselves, but that the actions are evil and that the regime itself was evil. And there must be a way that we can find to accept the humanity of individuals, no matter, you know, despite the horrors of the regime, and come together somehow, find a way to come together to recognize, to push forward and to see where we can go in the future with this.